Hey guys, another day, another vlog. I'm Mama Starfox, and this is a very late vlog for me. Usually I try to do it in the morning and how this day starts, but at least now I can say how my whole day went. Well, this morning was an early morning with my kids, and I had a social work appointment, so I got to talk to her, but today was a pretty down day. It was a pretty bad day. I was really stressed about finances and stuff, so it was, and besides that, it was just it was an off down day, and hopefully tomorrow will be better. But as I said in my last video, the vlog today is going to be about breastfeeding and my experience with that. Missy's trying to see. One sec.
Explore and learn on every side.
She's trying to see who I'm talking to, huh? Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, with my son, when he was born, and in our hospitals, I don't know if it's like this everywhere, but they're very breastfeeding forward. And when my son was born, I tried breastfeeding, and in the hospital as a brand new mom, it was really stressful. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't take any classes, and I recommend probably taking classes. It probably would have made everything 10 times better. But as a nursing student at the time, I knew some things about it anyway. But it was just hard to get it going. He wasn't latching very well, so they told me about the nipple shields, and so I used those. But with those, you have to sterilize them every time you use them, and you can only use them so many times, and then you have to throw it out, and then you have to buy a new one, and it's a task to get them latched on, because they told me that the reason he wasn't latching, it wasn't him, it was my nipples were too small, and it wasn't the position or anything, it was just my nipples were too small, here's a nipple guard. So, yeah, so we used that for a while, but when I had him, it was before I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression, before I went to see anybody about it, and before I was medicated. So I was beyond worried. Like, I was panicking every day that he wasn't getting enough, because I couldn't physically see. And one of my anxiety triggers is not having control over something, and that was something I couldn't see and control, was how much milk he was getting. So I couldn't physically see how much he was getting, and I knew the numbers of how much babies should have, and so I was constantly panicked. So I started pumping, and that worked for a while. But then my supply started getting a bit low because I wasn't putting to the breast anymore, and I was in school at the time. I was trying to finish my nursing degree, and so that was another stress, and I forgot my pump and wouldn't be able to do it at school and all this stuff. So I ended up, after a month of trying to do that, decided to put him on formula instead. That way everybody could feed him and all that. And at first, like before I decided to completely switch him to formula, I was really stressed about that as well, because I would call the breastfeeding clinic and ask about advice and ask, like, oh my god, I don't think he's getting enough, maybe I should switch to formula, and they knew how panicked I was. But they're trained, it seems that it is what's best for it is really good for the baby, but it's what's best for you and your baby. you don't have to feel like you need to breastfeed. You don't feel like, you shouldn't feel like that's the only option, and that if you switch to formula, you're being horrible, or you're giving up on your baby and your baby's health. It's not. The only reason I tried breastfeeding again was that we just recently bought a house and we needed to save money, and breastfeeding seemed like the best way to go because formula is very expensive and the sterilizing bottles is very time consuming. So that's the reason I did it again. And it seems like at first when I was giving up on it with him, I felt really bad about it and I felt like I wasn't a good mom. But as I saw things on the internet and more people saying how it was okay to do that and they chose not to do it, and I grew up with formula. Some people grew up with carnation milk and sugar. So we're doing great. No matter what you give your baby, formula or breastfeeding, you're taking care of your baby and you're making sure he's getting the nutrition. And that's what I wanted to do because at the time I didn't know if he was getting enough. And he wasn't really gaining much weight. Whereas this little miss gains it all the time. Yeah. Yeah, she's doing, and it changes from baby to baby. Some babies just don't latch right, they are frequent, and after we started formula feeding, he started sleeping in through the night. He would take like 6 ounces at night and go to sleep for the night since 2 months old. So I got wicked sleep, besides waking up and making sure he was breathing. So that was another bonus with formula feeding. But, yeah, and that was okay to give up on it, because he's a healthy 2-year-old, and breastfeeding for that 1 month, maybe it helped a bit, but, you know. I know. Okay. You try the other side? Okay. But yeah, and I tried it again with her because I wanted to try again. So I've seen so many people do it, and like I said, I wanted to save money because we just recently bought a house. So I did. And this time around, knowing how hard it was with my son, and since I was medicated at this point, so I wasn't as anxious and worried over those little things, it was a lot better. Like, I'm still doing it. And the thing is, she's not exclusively breastfed. Like, I don't pump unless I'm drinking and I have to pump and dump. I breastfeed her, but if somebody else is watching her, they give her lactose-free formula because that was what worked with her stomach. So, yeah, and that's okay. It's working for her. She's gaining a good weight. She's in, like, I think she was in the 80th percentile for her weight and her height. So she's growing and she's fine and she's healthy. Her tummy gets upset, but that's likely from things that I'm eating. Like, I eat a lot of chocolate and some spicy food sometimes. So that's my fault. And she's okay. Like, and it's a great experience with her. Like, it's a lot of bonding, and though she doesn't sleep in because she only gets so much from breastfeeding, so she wakes up every 3 hours or 4 hours and stuff, depending on if she's having a growth spurt. Her growth spurts, at least with her, I know she's having a growth spurt when she's extra gassy and she's extra fussy and she's eating a lot, and sometimes she'll be sleeping more than she usually does because she's having a growth spurt. And most of the time she's not sleeping as much. I'm gonna wait. little babies. Yeah. But, yeah. Yeah. The things I experience with breastfeeding with her, and so far it's been 4 months. They usually say like 6 months to a year to 2 years, whatever floats your boat with it, however long you can do it. And we're still going pretty strong now, and it's great because I don't have to sterilize bottles, I don't have to heat anything up, it's all just there. And there's the same amount of negativity with breastfeeding as there is with formula feeding too, because I know my grandmother, whenever I go there, she's like, oh, where's the bottle? And I'm like, I'm the bottle. I'm the physical bottle that I'm feeding her. And she's like, oh, okay, because she's not used to that. She doesn't realize that wasn't a big thing when we were little, and it wasn't a thing when she was having kids. So it's a little hard for some people to accept. And I've only fed in public twice, and I haven't had any problems, and the internet makes it seem like someone's going to come up to you and tell you to put that away, and it's disgusting, and all this stuff. But so far, it's been a good experience. There's no real breastfeeding exclusive spots in our malls and stuff here, but we just sit in a seat and feed, and I haven't had a problem yet, hopefully, knock on wood. But that's something it was a fear that I had to get over. I was feeding her in the car most of the time with the heat on because I was so scared because of things I've seen on the internet to actually sit down in public and feed her. And my message to people is don't be afraid of that. And if somebody tells you to stop it or whatever, tell them to screw off type thing, because it's your baby and you're feeding them. It's not like you're whipping them out and jiggling them around everywhere. Like, you're feeding your baby. But so far we haven't had that problem, huh, miss? No. No problems. No problems. One thing that I started out having when she was starting breastfeeding, when she was born, was I had really irritated cracked nipples, and I used prescribed nipple cream. There is ones that you don't have to get prescribed that you can get in store, but the prescribed nipple cream is probably better, especially to get your doctor or your OBGYN to look at them to make sure that you're not infected, because mastitis is really painful. I've had it with my son when I was taking him off breastfeeding, and my breasts were engorged and everything, and I had to use the cabbage leaves, which actually works. I was very surprised. It actually worked. But I did have mastitis which is an infection in the breasts, because of that, and also had blocked ducts. But yeah, the nipple cream really worked, and it keeps away that infection and inflammation and everything. And it's always good to switch up, like but don't let it get engorged, because that can make it more painful. At least for me it did. And with I was going somewhere now. My mind blanks sometimes. What you doing, Bubby? But yeah, and another thing I ran into was, like I said, the engorgement and having to put cabbage leaves on. And don't do that if you are breastfeeding, because usually you're feeding anyway. But when I was drinking, I was told to, if I had one drink, then I just had to wait 3 hours before feeding her, and then after that I'd have to pump and dump, which I have done. It's tedious and makes you want to cry because you're wasting all that milk that you made, but it's worth it, because you get that time out and stuff. Oh, baby, huh? Yeah. He's sucking on your hand. Sucking on your hand. Yeah, I have a lot of bruising because usually when she sleeps, she suckles in her sleep. So I'd say put them away while you're sleeping if you don't want to have a bunch of bruises all over you and looking like you're abusing your boobs. And another thing with black dust, and they probably told you this anyway, but I want to mention it. It's usually like you can feel, it feels like there's one painful spot, and it's where the milk gets clogged in there, in your ducts, and it is very painful. Sometimes there'll be a little white spot on the nipple where it's the hardened stuff trying to get out, but it's a red, painful one area. And the thing I did with it, and you got rid of it within a day or two, was get a hot shower, and make sure to have the hot water on that spot. And before every feeding, I put a hot cloth on my breast that was affected, and then got her to feed on that side. And that ended up helping. That got rid of the blockage. Yeah, it did. Yeah. So, yeah, and it's normal to see those, like, I have stretch marks and everything, and it looks weird, and at first, like, it can be very jarring, like, oh my god, what is that? But that's normal. The things that aren't normal would be finding, like, bigger lumps and having dimpling and changes in the color, or different types of discharge that's different looking from your breast milk. You can end up having blood if you're using that breast too much. That bleeding does happen, but just to watch out, because you don't want to think that something's normal and then end up missing something like breast cancer. Like, you want to make sure that it's okay, and always check with your doctor about things like that. Yeah. I don't think there's anything else. If I forgot anything and think of it later, I'll probably make another vlog and update it tomorrow. But for now, that's all I wanted to really touch on about my experience with breastfeeding. This is my 4th video and too much information already, so yeah. Have a good day, guys. Mama Star Fox out.